starting, you get to see a wonderful bird's eye view of Washington, D.C. The Washington Monument is at the far end of the background. And this is actually taken from the Elliott School of International Affairs, which is about 2 blocks from the law school. Washington, D.C. Is host to several universities, but GW is very lucky that we're in the heart of the city. So this sort of gives you an idea of the placement of the city. The Capitol and the monument are in the background. So when you start thinking about which LLM to do, whether you want to come to the U.S., whether you want to go to Australia, Singapore, or the United Kingdom, these are all the factors that you should look at when deciding to do an LLM. First of all, if you're doing an LLM, you obviously have a very specific subject area in mind. So you need to look and see what type of specializations each university offers, what the structure of the program is. Very specifically, look at the core curriculum and then look at the course offerings. So rankings are all well and good, but what is key to doing an LLM, and this is where perspective comes in, is to look at the course offerings for that specialization that you're interested in. Look and see if you're looking at patent law, are they heavily based on patent law, or they do trademarks and copyrights only, or is it a hybrid program? If it's international law, do they do international business only, or do they also take in human rights and public international law? So these are all the type of things you should be looking at when you are looking at doing an LLM in the U.S. and you're looking at various schools. See what the core curriculum is. Also very important is to see if as an LLM student you're going to be in a separate program where international LLM students are taught separately, graded separately, and basically don't have much interaction with the JD students, or are you going to take classes with the rest of the law school? The size of the law school, the number of the full-time and part-time faculty, all of that is critical in your determination to decide which school to attend. Look again, going back to the core curriculum, at the expertise of the faculty in your focus area. Do a little bit of investigation on the website and see, does the faculty bring professional experience into the classroom, i.e. do they bring guest lecturers? Do they have people who are coming in through Skype and through webinars who are faculty members in different parts of the world? Do they have engaged students in the classroom? All of this can be found through the website and also in talking with alumni. They're going to be your best resource. Talk to the faculty if you can, send them an email, ask what their interests are. These are all factors to consider when you're deciding what LLM to study. Very important is, of course, research. Look at the law school library. Look at the volumes, the number of volumes it has. Does it have a variety of legal and law-related volumes and databases, or is it very much geared towards a specific subject area? Is it heavily on constitutional law? Then look in the library and see if the librarians have specific areas where they're dedicated to that subject area. Is there an intellectual property librarian? Is there a business law librarian? Is there a constitutional law librarian? There should be people who have the expertise. Even though they're librarians, they are trained in legal research to be able to guide the students, and you should make sure that the school has a library who is able, with a staff who is able to help you. So in short, do your research. Again, flexibility. This is very critical because a lot of programs offer very structured LLM programs where you are going into a certain core requirement in terms of the subjects you can take. So look and see what type of programs are out there that vary in terms of the specialized credits and requirements. Can you devise your own LLM course of study? Would you be able to pick and choose from a variety of subject areas and basically do a study plan that would meet the school's LLM degree requirements? See if they have any flexibility where you can cross-pollinate. Are you able, if you're interested in, say, business and finance law, are you able to take classes at the business school of that university and count those business classes towards your LLM? Do they allow you to do any type of research and count that as an independent study project? So these are all the things you should be looking at when, again, you're looking at doing an LLM. Look at the start and end dates. Some of the introductory courses that start are very often early in the summer. And you would have to make sure that when you're starting an LLM program, that these programs that start early would not conflict with any summer programs that you may be taking. Flexibility also applies to changing your LLM specialization. If when you arrive at a law school, would you be able to change your specialization? For example, at the time of application, you wanted to do international and comparative law, so you signed up for that program on the application, but when you get to the law school, you see that they have a very strong business and finance focus. Can you change your specialization at the time of registration and orientation? These are questions to ask the staff of all the admissions offices at the time of application to see how flexible they are in this type of change. Location is key. When you're coming in from overseas, the United States looks extremely tempting, looks extremely appealing in terms of what you've seen on TV, in terms of pop culture, in terms of type of the legal discourse that takes place in this country. But what you should look at is sort of define the areas where you're applying. So it's not just the school, but it's also the city and the location. So do you want to stay on the East Coast or the West Coast? Do you want to go Midwest or the South? These are factors to consider when you're looking at whether you want to stay in a city and have a very urban campus, or you want to experience what you've seen on American television and in American movies, that college town feel where an entire city is based around the university in that town. And the university is basically the largest part of the town, and all of the activities of that town are around the university. So the university becomes a college town. And so the rural part of it is, for example, if you go to Ithaca, New York, Ithaca is a small town, beautiful upstate New York, but the entire economy of the town and the entire social, cultural, and environmental issues such as, rock climbing and hiking and all of those are based on what the university students want. In an urban campus, you are part of a city. You're part of a much larger community, which is cosmopolitan, which is very international in some cases, especially if you're doing East or West Coast. So these are all factors to consider. So do you want the heart of a city campus, or do you want a small college town? So do your research again. Again, what factors in greatly into location is cost of living. Of course, East Coast and West Coast will be more expensive than if you are to go down to the South, if you wanted to go to Alabama, or if you want to go out to Oklahoma and Kansas or Iowa. These places, Mid-South and even Deep South, Midwest, and then Upper Northwest will be cheaper areas to live in terms of living expenses than the East and the West Coast. But you will see that the predominance of the top 20 law schools in the United States are based on either coast. So you have to look again and see what is really important to you, the area of specialization in terms of faculty expertise, core curriculum, the university as a whole, not just on how cheap it will be to live somewhere else. Look and see whether the university is a hub. So what is important to see is if the university is a hub, for example, in intellectual property, you have Silicon Valley on the West Coast, and then you have Washington, D.C., where a lot of the IP laws are promulgated. So look and see if there's a particular discipline or focus area that has a city that is a hub of legal activity for that particular subject. Based on that, look and see what the job prospects are. Everyone is coming to do an LLM because it's going to help you go down the career path that much faster and increase your chances of getting better jobs and doing more work in your specific area and in specific field. However, look at the job prospects based on where this university is. If you are Midwest or rural South, finding internships in your area may not be as prevalent as if it would be if you were on the East Coast or the West Coast. So this is very important to factor in. After graduation, yes, everybody can move across the country and look for better jobs, but a lot of the jobs are tied into local internships in terms of firms, in terms of non-governmental organizations, in terms of the government, the local government, the federal government. So see what type of job prospects there are in that area where you are intending to study. Most important, and I think this is a factor that people tend not to look at because they're looking at other things, but it is very important if you're taking a year out of your life to come and do an LLM in the U.S., you're coming to a different environment, both in terms of educational system, in terms of the legal system, in terms of the culture, language, food, everything is different. See if you have family or friends in the area that can serve as a support base. It is nice to have somebody in town or at least close by an hour or two away that you can go visit on the weekends or, have a meal with, because it just makes it that much easier to acclimate. So I strongly recommend that you look at areas where you have some sort of support. In addition to family and friend support, it is very critical to see what type of support you will receive from an institution where you are intending to study, both in terms of faculty and staff support. One very good indicator of support is how you will be dealing with the admissions office. So find out the admission staff that you are dealing with in terms of the application process. Do they also help the current students? Is there a dedicated office just for international students? By that, I do not mean the international student office that issues the visa for the university. There should be a dedicated office for international LLM students in the law school itself. And sort of gauge, on a one-to-one basis, how helpful is the staff? Do they reply to emails fairly quickly? Are they responsive when you call and talk to them? Even if you have basic inquiries, something doesn't make sense. Are they responsive in the sense that they give you more detailed information themselves, or they just direct you to the website and sort of deal with your inquiry that way? This is a very good indicator of how well you will be supported in your endeavors at that specific law school. Most important, a career support. Is there a dedicated LLM career counselor for you? Check out the career office and find out exactly what types of programming they have for international LLM students. Are you mixed up with the JD career office and therefore considered part and parcel of that, and sort of when you go for career advice, whoever is on call that day as a career counselor will sit down and talk to you? Is there a specific LLM career counselor who gets to know you from the time you enter the law school to the time you graduate and works with you individually to devise a game plan in finding a job or an internship? These are all things you should find out at the outset. In terms of student support, ask what is the class of the LLM group that's coming in for the year in which you're applying. Is it large? Is it basically skewed towards certain countries, or is it a very diverse group in terms of international representation? Do they receive applications from students from other parts of the world, and is there a strong alumni base in other parts of the world? Are the alumni engaged? Are they active? And then sort of get a sense from the alums, and if you get a chance, ask to speak to a current student or get an email of a current student and sort of email the student to see what their sense is of being involved in the LLM community. Are they part of various student activities? Are they in part of student groups? Do they have their own LLM group? These are all questions that will help, because even though you're coming in to get an education, what is as important is the community that you will be part of while you're in law school. So very briefly on application requirements, and this is standard in terms of how LLMs are handled throughout the country. So you can either apply through LSAC, which is the Law School Admission Council, or you go to the school's website and mail in a paper application. At George Washington Law, we accept either LSAC applications or paper applications. So the typical requirements you see on your screen is the application and the fee, the official transcripts, letters of recommendation, and English certification such as TOEFL or IELTS. If you have received your law degree from a law school where the medium of instruction was only English, you can of course request a waiver, and as long as your university produces that document, you do not have to take the TOEFL or IELTS. What is key to an application is the personal statement. And here I will interject my own personal comments as a director and as the key admissions officer here for the law school. I read 800, 900 applications a year. And the first thing I go to when I start a new application review is the personal statement. So this is key to your application in terms of who you are as a person, who you are as a lawyer, and what you want to accomplish. We look at the grades based on your transcripts. We read the recommendations that the people you've asked to recommend you have submitted. So they could be professors, or they could be your supervisor at work, or it could be somebody you've done an internship at an NGO. Those are all very closely evaluated. But in addition to that, what is critical is the good personal statement. So this should be about 2 to 3 pages, not more than that. And basically what I say is that it should be a snapshot of who you are as a person and as a lawyer and what you want to accomplish. So the admissions committee is going to be looking at hundreds and hundreds of files. What you want to say in the personal statement is make yourself stand out from the others. So something interesting that happened in childhood that motivated you to become a lawyer, or an interesting internship you have done, or a movie that impacted you greatly and made you consider going into law. These are small little examples. What an admissions officer does not want to hear is that, oh, I'm going to repeat exactly what I read on the law school website and put that into my personal statement. Yes, it shows that you've actually looked at the website and you've actually read what all the law schools are putting up on their website, but it doesn't give us any indication of who you are. So if you're going to say, oh, I want to come to George Washington because you have this terrific program in intellectual property, and that's why I want to come, that's not going to be taken very seriously. What we want to hear is, I want to come to George Washington for intellectual property because you have in patent law the former chief judge of the Federal Circuit who teaches and who takes international students as interns. And more importantly, I want to learn from him because he has, or the other IP directors have written the case books on patent law. So that shows sort of the research that you have done. More importantly, again, going back to the personal statement, tell us a little about yourself and who you are. And so it can be, that's why we say personal statement. It can be about you and your life and a little bit about your history, because we want to hear from you as a person. So I stress this a lot because I've seen personal statements make or break an application. Somebody may be very academically qualified, but in the end, the personal statement just doesn't make the person stand out. And then the committee and the deans do not favor that application that seriously. They look at the academic grades, they look at it, but there's something in the personal statement that says, well, maybe the person is not showing enough maturity and doesn't show that they have the academic rigor to withstand a very strong LLM program. So you have to be very careful in how you couch your personal statement. If you have any questions on personal statements, I'm more than happy to answer them at the end of this presentation. Scholarships. So scholarships are key because, as you all know, doing an LLM in the U.S. is not a cheap proposition. It is, when you sort of look at the price of what it takes to do an LLM, you sort of have sticker shock. So absolutely, absolutely look for scholarships. There are many, many options for scholarships, both from the school and from outside sources. And I highly, strongly suggest that you start doing this a year or two in advance.
Shehernaz, if I can interrupt you very briefly, because there has been a couple of questions
Okay.
that has been typed in. So there has been a few questions that some of the attendees have typed in. So Indrani Chatterjee has asked a question like, she would also like to know a little bit more about the PhD program as well, and if you can elaborate. I mean, if you're going to explain that PhD or the SJD program, if you will be explaining that later on
I
during the
will.
presentation, it's
After
absolutely fine.
scholarships, we go specifically into GW, and I'll be discussing that.
Okay, perfectly fine, not a problem. The other question is from Boaz Abraham. Boaz has asked, does all the typical requirements apply to green card holders as well? So, if he already has the visa, does all the other typical requirements? By typical requirements, I presume Boaz means the IELTS, I mean the LSAT, not LSAT, sorry, the TOEFL requirements and the other standard requirements. Is it mandatory for people who hold green cards as well?
Right. So let me answer that very briefly. Citizenship or nationality has no bearing on admission. It is purely based on your academic record. So if you are a green card holder, if you have received your law degree from a different country, you're still going to be considered an international student. It is based on the country in which you received your law degree. So if you are a green card holder and living in the U.S., but you have a law degree from India, you would still be considered an international student because you have not gone through law school in the U.S. So in terms of IELTS or a TOEFL, if your university can provide that the medium of instruction was in English, you would be waived, but all other academic admission requirements still apply.
Thanks so much. I think if Indrani's question is going to be answered in the course of your presentation, then I think it's better if you.
Well, let me actually just preface that because most of my presentation is specifically on LLM. In order, Indrani, to do an SJD in the United States, most universities and law schools prefer that you have also done an LLM in the U.S. The SJD is the final degree that you can receive in law. It's the PhD of law. It's Doctor of Juridical Science. It is a 3-year program where you're basically writing a very substantive dissertation. You're basically writing a book on a topic that has not been researched much beforehand. In order to do that, you have to show that you have in-depth ability to do research and analysis on that topic. So most universities will ask if you've done an LLM in the U.S. and if you've written your master's thesis, because that is going to be the writing sample that you will be presenting at time of application. So the SJD is more research-based in terms of the degree program compared to an LLM where you're basically taking 24 credits of classroom instruction. So in order to do the SJD, at least at GW, we prefer that you have done an LLM in the U.S. and then somebody is definitely considered based on the LLM for admission. It is also important because the recommendations from your American law school professors will help much more substantially because they will be able to gauge whether you have the ability to do an SJD in the U.S. based on how well you did in your LLM and in writing your LLM thesis. Okay?
All right. So yes, if there are further questions, then we can take it in between. But please, I don't want to interrupt your presentation with all these.
No problem. So in terms of scholarship, you see on this screen that we've got, as I said, we've got definitely various sources for help. So talk to the Education USA advisor in your country, and then when applying for scholarships, absolutely apply for scholarships at each law school. There are multiple scholarships offered at the law school. Very specifically, let me talk about GW. So we have several scholarships. We have a GW Law Merit Scholarship, we have a Bergenthal Scholarship, we have a Ben Gupta Scholarship, we have additional scholarships. When you apply for a scholarship, even if you just tick that you're applying for a Gupta or a Bergenthal, we evaluate you for all possible sources of funding. So suppose you say you're applying for the Gupta Scholarship and the committee decides that you're not eligible for the Gupta Scholarship based on whatever criteria they're using. That doesn't mean that you get denied the scholarship. We automatically move you then to be considered for the GW Law Merit Scholarship. So when you apply for scholarship, you may indicate one scholarship, but at least with us, we'll consider you for all possible sources of funding and make sure that at least something is allocated to you if you meet the criteria, which is academic merit and financial need. So definitely ask each of the law schools about what type of scholarships they offer. Now something about GW. So now my presentation goes very specifically into GW and what we are and what we do in this town. So you can see GW is one of our larger law schools in the United States. We're actually pretty large in comparison to other law schools. So again, going back to what I said earlier, see whether you want a larger or smaller law schools. So you see on your screen, we have a total enrollment of almost 2,000 students, and we have 175 students in the various LLM programs. At GW, we do not separate our LLM students from the JDs. For almost all of the courses, there are two exceptions. You are taking classes with the rest of the law school. We feel that it's critical that if you are coming to do an LLM in the U.S., that you are taking classes with the rest of the law school so you gain both the exposure and the practical experience of what it means to interact with an American lawyer. So we don't separate. You will see our LLM class profile. We had almost 900 applications from the United States and 87 countries. And this year we have 175 students in our program from 46 countries. So we're incredibly diverse. We do not have a quota system where we only take a certain number of students from each country. So if 20 students from India apply and all 20 meet the criteria for admission, we will offer admission to everyone. We do not select based on number of slots per country at all. So as you can see, it is pretty diverse in terms of our country representation. We do have a lot of students from the U.S., from India, from China, and Brazil. So it makes for an interesting class discussion at all times. So the student body composition, you will see that we have both a full-time JD program and a part-time JD, and then the graduate programs. The graduate programs consist of the LLM, the SJD students. Then we also have a lot of exchange students here and non-degrees. In terms of the incoming class of the LLM students, you will see that the international students predominantly outnumber the U.S. LLM students in this year's class, and that is pretty much the norm for each consecutive year. Again, just a little snapshot of, you see how diverse our class is. It gives you an idea of where everybody's coming from. Africa, Middle East, North and South America, Europe. It's pretty much spread throughout the regions of the world. So some facts. We're one of the oldest universities. We were founded in 1821. We have over 270,000 alumni worldwide. And the law school has almost 30,000 alumni worldwide. Most of our students go back home to teach or work, and even our JD students are now living across the globe. And so it is pretty much standard that if you are going to be traveling for work or you are going to be visiting another country, you will be able to find a GW Law alum to meet and catch up with. And most often it'll be somebody from your own batch. So location. You can see on your screen that GW is located in the heart of Washington, D.C. The top left of your screen will show you GW. So you have across the street from us the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, the Organization of American States, the State Department, and then the various courts are all within walking distance. So we're in a very accessible city, and being in the heart of DC means you have a lot of opportunities to take part in both the cultural and the legal environment here. There's a lot going on at all times, and sometimes it's hard-pressed to pick and choose what you want to do. There are a ton of museums here, and one of the beauties of the museums in Washington is they're all free. There is no entrance fee, so we definitely encourage our students to take part in those activities. GW Law has about 90 full-time faculty and nearly 250 adjuncts. Adjunct faculty are those professionals who are working full-time and then are coming to GW Law to teach one very specific class. We have 275 elective courses, so it does become a bit of a challenge to pick and choose what course you want to take when you get here. Now, in terms of our specific LLM requirements, anyone who's coming in for an LLM, regardless of their specialization, must take 24 credits. That is a mandatory requirement. These credits are split between 2 semesters. Because most of you will be coming in on an F1 student visa, you are expected to complete the program full-time, and so you will take it in fall and spring and then graduate. Courses go between 2 and 3 credits. There are some 4-credit classes. And you must then either write an LLM thesis. If you are looking at doing the SJD again, you must write the thesis. Or if you are not and you are intending to practice or work afterwards, you do not have to write the thesis, but we do ask all our international LLM students to complete a research paper. So that completes your writing requirement. And I actually encourage most of you to actually complete the research paper requirement so that you can take more classes. In order to complete the LLM, there are 2 required courses here, which is Fundamentals of U.S. Law, Legal Research, and Writing. These 2 classes are taught at the beginning of your LLM program of study, and they will be taught in the fall semester, and that is the one time you will have an opportunity to be with all of your other classmates from all over the world in that class. Otherwise, you're going to be sort of dispersed through the law school, and you're going to be taking classes with JDs, with international LLMs, with exchange. But Fundamentals in Legal gives you the opportunity to just be with your fellow classmates who have come into the international LLM program. All of our specializations have different credit requirements. So you could be taking 12 credits or 16 credits depending on what the specialization requires. I'm sure there are a lot of you that are considering doing the New York bar upon completion of the LLM. At GW, all of our specialized programs also meet the New York bar requirements. So that is not a problem when you're looking at doing a specialized program of study and worrying about what you want to do if you want to take the bar. The general LLM is probably our most flexible program of study. So apart from the Fundamentals and Legal Research course that I described a minute ago, the remaining credits, you just craft your individual course of study. So you could do contracts, you could do constitutional law, or you could take a few courses in IP, you could do environmental and energy. It is up to you. We are not going to sit there and prescribe what courses you want to take. You are guided at all times by faculty advisors, but ultimately the decision is up to you. So as you can see, there are a lot of U.S. courses available. For example, the courses that are up on your screen are all required New York bar courses. So you would be definitely taking at least 1 or 2 of these courses if you intend to sit for the New York bar. Besides the general LLM, we offer several other specializations, and I'm just going to go into those very briefly. We have the Business and Finance program, which is taught by several key figures. Professor Kovacic was the commissioner of FTC. And then we have Donald Clark, who is a leading expert on Chinese business law and writes one of the preeminent blogs. Arthur Wilmarth does securities regulation. Teresa Gabital, Jeffrey Manns. You have a very cohesive faculty. In addition to the Business and Finance program, there is also a center for economics and finance. which offers a lot of networking opportunities for you and also has seminars and other events in New York. New York being the corporate hub. We are tied very closely up there, and so our professors, through CLEAF, which is the center that I just mentioned, offer a lot of opportunities for our students either to work as a CLEAF fellow if you're interested after graduating, or to do some sort of internship, or to attend all the events. All the events are geared towards our student body, and even if there's a major conference going on, we always make sure that our students have the opportunity to be involved. Foundation courses include corporations, antitrust, secures transactions, securities regulation, but then we also have very specific courses on white-collar crime or international money laundering or foreign direct investment, project finance. All of these courses come under business and finance. If you go on our website and if you look at the program specializations, you will see all of the various courses that are offered in the various specializations. Environmental law has not just environmental law, but we have specializations in international environmental, in energy, and in government procurement and environmental. And you see some of the courses that we offer in that. Right now, international climate change, oil and gas, and energy law are very, very popular topics to take in addition to atomic energy. But along with that, we have air pollution and water pollution control, and given that the energy and environmental sector is under increasing fire these days in terms of new policies that are being enacted, there is a strong demand, and we're actually creating new coursework in this area. So if you're doing international environmental law, for example, you could take law of the sea and trade. You could also do trade and sustainable development, and you could do a lot of the international law courses as part of international environmental law. Again, for each of these, the detailed information on the website. Intellectual property. So we have one of the oldest IP programs in the country, and a lot of the patents that have been promulgated have been done by GW folk. So you see that there's quite a strong focus just in patent law, but also in copyright and trademark. So we have not just law in cyberspace, but we have a specific course on the Federal Circuit, which is taught by judges from the Federal Circuit, which is very fascinating for students who are doing IP. And then international copyright and patent, and then these are some of the foundation courses that you would take. We also have courses as art and cultural heritage. You have licensing of IP rights. You have patent enforcement. So there are a lot more courses here that give you a solid base on patent law. In addition, we are with the Max Planck Institute in Munich, we offer the GW Munich IP program in the summer. So you would be able to take classes at Max Planck in Munich and have our professors teach you various subjects within the IP program there at Munich, and then come in after the summer to start the LLM here, so you have more of an extensive foundation in IP at that time. International and comparative law, again, is both based on public and private international law. We have everything from international business transactions, international commercial law, refugee and asylum. We have transnational Islamic law, foreign direct investment. All of these courses make up what the International and Comparative Law program is. We also offer a summer program with Oxford University in England, an international human rights law program. You could take that summer program if you're looking specifically at human rights and international law and count those credits at Oxford towards your LLM degree here. So you would be able to do both the LLM and enjoy a summer in Oxford. The Oxford program has instructors not just from Oxford University and from GW, but also from all around the world. Practitioners in the area of human rights come in to teach there, and it is well worth spending the extra summer in class to be able to learn from these professors. The International and Comparative Law program also hosts a lot of events throughout the year. We just did Live from L, where we work with the State Department advisors. They come in every couple of months, and we have a roundtable discussion on topics in international law. Yesterday was the South China Sea, and it is broadcast, it is webcast throughout the world, and people have an opportunity to listen to the advisors in discussion at George Washington University. It is pretty fascinating when you think about they're actually talking about key issues going on in the world today. Government procurement law. Now this is a very specific program because it deals with public procurement, but there also now, our faculty are also going more and more into international procurement. So you would be able to do government contracts and the IP seminar in terms of government contracts with them. This program is more U.S. based in terms of law, but there's also a lot of international focus. As you can see, this comparative public procurement. And so this is really for people who are looking to go into contracting and procurement work, administrative law down the road. National Security and U.S. Foreign Relations Law is one of our newer LLM specializations and is extremely, extremely popular right now because it deals a lot with cybersecurity and in counterterrorism. We just started a cybersecurity initiative at the law school, and down the road we are probably going to be doing an LLM in cybersecurity as well. But for now, the cybersecurity research initiative is very much a think tank and is bringing practitioners in the area to the law school to speak to our students on areas of cybersecurity and the threat of terrorism. National Security and U.S. Foreign Relations deals specifically with U.S. foreign relations law and then on nation building. But you could do a lot of international law courses as part of this. So you could do a hybrid of international law and national security if you were interested. This program does allow you to cross-pollinate a little bit with the other specializations. There's litigation and dispute resolution, which is basically ADR and mediation. This program has a very specific foundation course base. So you have to do at least 21 credits in the litigation subject area. So they have everything from College of Trial Advocacy to Advanced Evidence to the American Jury, negotiation and conflict management. These are all part of the litigation program. However, with litigation, they will allow you to take some of the New York Bar courses as well. So if you wanted to do ADR and do the New York Bar, you would be able to sit down with the program director and devise a specific course of study which would get all the litigation courses into your specialization requirement module and also the New York courses into your module and still graduate with an LLM in litigation. Going back to the Career Center. So I wanted to speak a little bit about the Career Center at GW because this is, of course, paramount to your interest in doing an LLM. For us, we have a dedicated LLM career counselor where we do individualized counseling. So once you arrive at the law school, and once you've gone through orientation and registration, you would be sitting down with the LLM career counselor and work on your resume and cover letter, and then start looking for jobs. The career counselor will work with you as well, and he or she, right now we have 2 career counselors that are covering the position, so depending on who you get to meet. They will also work with you in doing mock interviews and showing you how to network American style. And then they will give you access to an online job portal, so you have a lot of opportunity to see what internships or externships are available. In addition, they do a ton of networking events and panels, so you will have many, many options. George Washington Law participates in ISIP, which is the International Student Interview Program. It's held in New York. It's held actually at NYU every January. And so if you are interested in participating in this program where employers come in to interview students, we would run you through the process. We would get you ready with your resume. We would do mock interviews, and then we would take you up to New York to participate in the interview program. I go up with all of you, and so does the career counselor, so you have us as all times for backup. If you want to sort of run through an interview at the last minute, if you want to make sure you're sounding right and you're saying the right things, we are there every step of the way. In addition, you have the New York Bar exam. We give you a lot of guidance on the New York Bar and what to take and how to prep. We do not have any bar prep courses ourselves. That's not what the LLM is for, but we will provide guidance on how best to basically prepare for the bar exam. And then, of course, you have the option of doing optional practical training, which is OPT after graduation, which is where the government allows you to stay on for 1 year upon completion of your LLM to stay in the country and work. So that is an option, and you would work with our International Services Office to get the OPT. Student organizations at GW, there are a lot. And when you come into the law school and you go through the first floor, you're going to see all the tables of the bar of the various organizations and what activities they're having right now. The Society of European Law Students was actually started 2 years ago by our international law students, and now it's become one of the biggest organizations on within the law school. You will see that there are many, many other organizations. I have not been able to list them, but if you go on the website, you can definitely look at them. There are over 50 last count. The International Arbitration Student Association was also created by LLMs, so you can see we have a very very active LLM group here, and students are part and parcel of the community. They create these organizations, they bring in lecturers. We do a lot of networking events. In addition to each of the programs doing networking events, we also, as an office, the Graduate Programs Office, does a lot of social activity throughout the year. So you'll see there's a picture of a potluck that we did recently, but we have a White House tour. Alumni are always coming back to DC, so anytime an alum is coming in and they let me know in advance, I organize a coffee hour with the alums so that our international students can talk to them and about their experience and how they got a job afterwards, and how they handled the LLM program, how they prepared for the bar. So we have a lot of alumni talks. We do Thanksgiving and New Year's lunch and Nowruz lunch, cherry blossom cruise. We have a Halloween walk through the city. I can just go on, but there are at least something going on every few weeks here. We also hold coffee hours just for the LLM students to come in and unwind and talk amongst themselves. So it actually, there's a lot to choose from, and it's always a joke as to, do you want to go to class or do you want to go to an event? And of course our answer is you need to go to class. At least that's what our professors say. Now, coming to where to live in DC. George Washington University, as you probably noticed from the map earlier, is in the heart of the city. So we are surrounded by the federal government and international organizations, but interspersed between all of these are apartment buildings. So you could actually live 2 blocks from the law school and walk to campus every day. Or you could decide to live across the river in Virginia or a little further up in Maryland and take the metro, which is our subway, into the DC downtown area. We are called Foggy Bottom. That's the neighborhood where we are. And so there are 2 metro stops that you can use to get into the university. And in addition to that, it is very accessible by walking and by biking. It's a very accessible city, so you really do not need a car. We do not recommend that you get a car at all. You can pretty much get anywhere within a 25-mile radius, either by transportation in terms of a bus or by the metro. Of course, there's always Uber if you're going far out, and so there's no transportation issue at all being where we are. Popular neighborhoods are Arlington and Alexandria. And if you come to GW and to the law school, we will help you with the housing in the terms of we have our own Facebook page. And as students start getting admitted and accepting the offers, we start posting if somebody's looking for a roommate, or if an LLM who's graduating has an apartment that they wish to rent. So we sort of keep this informal board going of roommates and apartments for rent, and it's fairly easy to find something in the DC area. DC is a very international city, given the number of international organizations that we have, so there's a tremendous urban nightlife to it. There's a lot of things you can do in terms of everything from concerts and jazz clubs to bars to restaurants. And then we have a lot of cultural activities. The Kennedy Center puts on amazing cultural performances. We have great art galleries. Again, Washington being the capital of the U.S. and being a very international city, there's a lot going on every single day. And with that, I will end and hopefully have some time to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Shehernaz, for such a insightful, insight into the LLM program at GW University. So there are a few questions. I mean, like, if any attendees have any questions, they can raise their hands or just type in the question to the question bar, and we can ask them. But while you were holding the presentation, while you were doing the presentation, I just wanted to ask, like, a couple of things which came to mind. Especially, you have mentioned about some very interesting programs like the cybersecurity and also the certain initiatives that you promote, in the sense that the ISIP. Now, ISIP is not something that many law students or lawyers who are coming to do an LLM in US knows about. At least maybe once they reach there, they come to know about that. In fact, in India, we do something similar. We at Law Pundits organize something very similar as well. But this where we were inspired by ISIP. So can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, what is the chances of people from India or African continents getting placements through ISIP?
So ISIP is based within a certain group of law schools. So it's a consortium of law schools, and New York University sort of hosts this program every year. And so what happens at the schools that are part of this consortium have the ability to offer their students something called a resume drop. So employers who are interested in recruiting LLM students from these specific law schools will send a note to ISIP a year in advance saying that they are intending to participate in the ISIP fair and that they will be available in New York. And it's always held at the end of January. That's sort of the standard time frame for it. Once we're notified that ISIP is happening for the year in question, we tell our students to get their resumes together, and they have to do something called a resume drop, where they basically put their resumes into this large pool of applicants, and they have to do it by a certain deadline. These deadlines are extremely strictly enforced. So it is incumbent on the LLM student to work with our career counselor to get the resume up to speed, because when you're coming in from different systems, the resume formatting is not the same as the U.S. style resume. So you need to convert it to a U.S. style resume where you're basically no more than 1 or 2 pages and you're outlining everything you've done, but not necessarily in the same format that you had back home. A lot of things that people put on their resumes, a lot of people put their high school information because back home it's relevant, is not relevant in the U.S. So our career counselor works with you. So once you put your resume into the resume drop, it goes into this vast pool, and all of the employers will sift through all the resumes and then pick up the resumes of the students that they're interested in interviewing. So once they pick up these interviews, then the student is notified by our career counselor that you have been selected for an interview with employer X, Y, and Z. Once we have that, then we prep you for the interview. Then you go up to New York, and it's a marathon session. If you get multiple interviews, you're pretty much going to be meeting with employers for more than maybe 10, 15 minutes before you go to the next round. So it is pretty strenuous. It can be daunting. It can be challenging. But if you've prepped enough, you'll fly through with colors. The employers are looking to fill positions. They could be here in the U.S., but they could also be for back home. So that is something I should raise with all of you. They're not necessarily only for jobs in the U.S. These firms and corporations are looking to place lawyers in subsidiaries or, in other bases. It could be Dubai, Singapore, Middle East. It could be back in India or Africa. It could be anywhere. It's not just for jobs in the U.S. But it is amazing experience. It gives you an opportunity to meet with senior partners at these firms because they do come, the firms that are interviewing do send out their partners to do the interviews. It is an extremely good experience just to go through an interview. It is even more advantageous in the sense that you can network with these people down the road. Even if you don't get the job, they have your resume, you're on their radar. So it is a very good opportunity, and I encourage all the students, even if you're not sure what you're doing, just do ISIP because you never know what could happen.
Thank you very much. Now, one of the questions that has been coming up in the previous webinars, in fact, one of the webinars that we had earlier today, this question was asked, and I think it would be very relevant for the attendees right now and for every attendees who would be listening to this recording in future as well, is that during the LLM program, is it possible to be working in specifically in the in Washington, or so is there any positions that is available, or is it possible? Does the visa condition permit the law student to work during that during their LLM
Okay.
time?
Yep, that's a very legitimate question. I get that a lot too. So if you are coming in on an F1 student visa, which predominantly you will be, the F1 student visa permits you to work for no more than 20 hours per week on campus. So that means it has to be a university job. That is, you have to be hired by George Washington University, and you can work no more than 20 hours a week. So what does this mean in terms of the type of jobs? It could be something like being a research assistant for a law professor, or it could be answering phones at the police department in the night. It could be shelving library books in one of the several libraries that we have here. It could be doing office work in another department of the university. It could be anything. But so long as it's a university job, you are allowed to work. So it could be completely non-legal in nature. If you want to try and find an internship or a job that is specifically related to your program of study, if it's a research assistant position on campus, great. If it's not, be very, very careful that you are getting the internship as an unpaid intern. You cannot do an internship and earn money if it's not a campus job, i.e., if a non-governmental organization, say take Human Rights Watch. Human Rights Watch is looking for interns who are doing an LLM in the U.S. and specializing in international law and have some expertise in refugee and asylum law, and you meet that criteria. You could do the internship, but it must be unpaid at all times. That means you cannot receive lunch money, you cannot receive metro fare, you cannot receive any type of remuneration at all. If you do, it violates your visa and it could have serious consequences. So you could also do that, or better, you could do it as an academic internship. We offer a lot of internships and externships through our field placement office, and you could certainly apply for those. And if you get an internship, you could do it for academic credit instead. However, one note of caution, if you do an academic internship, these internships are not counted by the New York Bar. So then you run into this whole issue of making enough credits to get the New York Bar requirements. So going back to the F1 student visa, you can work provided it's on campus for 20 hours.
Thank you so much. And what about during the OPT time? At that time, it is possible to do a paid internship, right?
Exactly. During the OPT, you are eligible to work and be paid. That's the whole point of the OPT. Work full-time and get financial remuneration. That is not an issue. It's just while you're in your program of study that they have very strict rules about what you can and cannot do.
We have
And
one more question. Oh, sorry, you were about to say something, Shehernaz?
well, I was just going to say the OPT is not automatic. You have to apply and be approved. So everyone right now has started the OPT process because graduation is in May. And so once graduate, you have to apply for the OPT several months in advance and have your OPT card, which is an employment authorization card, available so that when an employer is looking to hire you, you can tell them that you have, clearance from the government to be able to work. But you have
We
to
have,
receive clearance. It's an OPT is not automatic. You have to apply.
all right, understood. We have a question from Annie Arya. There is two questions. So one is that, is the OPT limited to an extension of 1 year? So can we get an OPT only for 1 year? And the second question is that, which again is a question that's been very popular during this, the entire LLM week webinar as well, is that, what is the notion of work experience, like especially in terms of application that you receive for an LLM program? Do you look at someone who has done a work experience more favorably, or is it better to apply directly after law school? What is the
Okay.
general perception on that?
So let me answer the OPT question first. The OPT is very strictly for 1 year only. Okay, so and that is a U.S. government rule. That's got nothing to do with us. That is how the government looks at it, and the OPT is valid for 1 year. Now, in terms of work experience for the LLM application process, at GW, we have students who are 20 and 21 years old who have come straight out of their law program, their undergraduate Bachelor of Laws program, and have come straight to the LLM program and maybe have done 1 or 2 internships while they were in law school. Then we have students who are coming into the LLM program with 20, 30 years of work experience who are now coming to do an LLM because they need that specialized knowledge in their subject area. They need to, sort of get that more advanced understanding of the subject. So work experience is looked at, but it is not critical to the application process where we're concerned. Ours is very much a holistic review. As I said, we look at the grades, we look at the recommendations, we look at the personal statement, and if we think the student is a good fit for us, we will admit them. It doesn't matter if they've had the work experience or not. Work experience does help, but it is not a bar to admission at GW Law.
Okay. Thank you very much, Shehernaz. You've been very helpful with answering most of the questions, and the presentation as well. So we are recording this, and it will be made available to all the attendees in case they want to go through what has been discussed today. So if you have anything more to add, then please feel free to do. Otherwise, I think we can conclude the webinar here.
And the phone number and email addresses are up on your screen. My direct email is sjoshi, the first one. Feel free to email me with any questions you have. I'm happy to answer.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shehernaz. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.